If a friend comes to your house and they say, "Hey, can I have a drink of water?" Or, "Hey, I'm a little hungry." Like, or they have to use the restroom. You're like, "It's over there. Here's some water. Here's some food." So for ourselves, we don't actually listen. We don't listen and tune into our own needs. We talked about using compassion as something that is not just a good idea, but it's something that actually works.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepic, your host and health coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. And building on last week's episode where we talked about a challenged relationship with food. Today, we're going to dig deeper and look at what's potentially underneath all of that. And I really have a wonderful expert to guide us through this. She's a dynamic speaker, best-selling author, and coach specializing in body confidence, food freedom, and self-love. As the creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, and the best-selling book, Befriend Yourself, she empowers individuals to transform their relationship with food and their bodies through self-compassion and spiritual practices. Featured on TEDx Salinas, and in major media outlets like ABC, NBC, and Fox. She integrates her expertise in Reiki, integrative somatic trauma therapy, and women's wellness to help people move from despair to hope and thrive in their lives. Living in Miami with her family, she's continuing her mission to inspire others to embrace self-acceptance and vibrant living. A warm salad with a side of fries welcome to Marla Mervis-Hartmann.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I actually live in Maui.
Nice.
Yeah.
So nice. So I appreciate you joining us all the way from Maui, the magic of technology. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So we'll dig deeper into your story and then how we can help everybody after we highlight what our members are getting this week. So members, as discussed earlier this month, it's a time of year for soups and stews. So your recipe this week is this is literally the name of it, the best healthy turkey chili. So I'll send you the details for using a slow cooker or not. Easy both ways. You can adjust the spice level too. So it's delish. And this is a great one actually for any meal or any snack. I think you're going to love it. So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal when you take advantage of the full offerings because you save far more than that $10 cost. It's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the episode notes below because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, you click I agree and then support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the best healthy turkey chili. Okay, Marla, how did you come to this specialty of body image?
Well, of course, like probably most of your guests, there's a tumultuous relationship in there that was healed. So I would say that most of my life, I had an interesting relationship with my body and with food. I definitely had a preoccupation with food. But if you trace it back really to where this all came was around how I felt about my body. Now, I was someone who was young and curvy. And so I got a lot of attention from my body at a very young age. And as a young girl, you don't really know what that's all about. It's kind of confusing because you're just out playing, you're doing your thing, and people are commenting on your body. And so it's a little discombobulating. And then it kind of caught up to me. I can remember at a certain time, it's like, oh, it was like this light bulb. My body is important. The way my body looks I get attention from that. So I better hang on to that, because if I don't hang on to that, then I'm not getting acknowledgement. Then I'm not getting approval. Then, oh my gosh, I may not be loved. And so there was that moment of that kind of clicked in. And then that's when the food was like, oh, the way to do that is to control the food. And so that was like the anchor point. And then you anchor how I dealt with my life and how I dealt with emotions and feelings was really through controlling my weight and controlling my food, whether that was binging or over exercising or under eating and restricting, and a lot of comparison and a lot of looking outward rather than getting connected to myself. And so what felt like years of being in the suffering. And then when I finally got to that point where I was like, oh, this has nothing to do with my body. This has nothing to do with my weight. This is an inner job. This is an inner experience. And how I got there to kind of cut through a lot of the years is that I hit that magic number on the scale. And I thought that that number was going to mean freedom and was going to mean that I was going to be happy and everything was going to be okay. And it was exactly the opposite. I was such in the depths of despair. My life was so small. It was the perfect, most awful moment of my life, right? Where it was just like the light bulb went on again. And it was like, we need to look at this from a bigger perspective. There is something that you need deep help with. And so that's what took me on this other journey of recovery, of healing my relationship with my body and my food. And quite honestly, there weren't podcasts like this, and there weren't people like me doing this work. So I was putting together my own healing journey. I was creating my own recovery package through a lot of self-inquiry, spiritual studies, therapy, sexual wellness, and dealing with trauma on that level, and just dealing with so many of these things that point to my body and my relationship with food, but weren't really about the food or the body. And, I'm still a work in progress. Like I am.
Aren't we all? Yeah.
Right? Right. I was just listening to your last podcast, the one you did around, was her name Katie? About movement and self-worth and diet culture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she said something so beautiful in that. She's like, we're still in diet culture, right? We're still having to catch these thoughts because we're a part of it. It is something that we're in. We're not outside of it. And so I'm always looking at like, how can I love my body more? How can I take care of it better? How can I be kinder to myself and really use a lot more self-compassion in my relationship with my food and my body?
Yeah. And, you bring up a really interesting point of, going back to this idea of like, we're so in it that it can sometimes be extra challenging to like step out of it and be that observer almost, right? So I could imagine somebody is sitting here listening, maybe with their arms crossed or multitasking, but saying in their head, I don't know if this applies to me, right? I don't know that I need this conversation. So can we address that right at the top? Like, what do you say to that? Because I see this showing up in a lot of places where people don't even realize. And I'm curious if you do too.
I see it show up all the time. And what it shows up as is low grade upset and pain and suffering. It's low grade. It's so normalized in our culture to not like our bodies, have something around food that doesn't feel good, to be comparing ourselves, to be trying a diet that is not working, going back and forth. It's such a part of our culture that people don't even realize the benefit of working on this. And I see it over and over again. It's like, well, it's not like I have an eating disorder. It's like, no, it's about your life. It's about the expression that you want the person that you're meant to be, and the way that negative body image can infiltrate your life. It shows up in our work. It shows up in our sexuality. It shows up in how we parent. It shows up in how we dress. It shows up in all these ways and all these moments where we contract. We don't allow ourselves to be fully who we are because of our bodies. All those moments are what creates our life. And so if we begin to notice those moments, we're like, wow, this is bigger of a deal than I realized. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to have an issue around this. If you're listening to this and this isn't for you, I am so excited. Like,
right. Thrilled for you.
Thank you. Like, go and teach the world how you do it. Right. And I think there's always an opportunity to find ways to have more compassion and love for our bodies.
Yeah. And I think The example that's sort of so clear in my head is when, we can be so mean to ourselves, the things that we say in our own head compared to what we would never say these things out loud to someone else, but we say them to ourselves, right? And you mentioned that our challenges with our body or body image can show up at work and in relationships. Can you give some examples of those things, of what does it look like when it shows up in our work or in friendships?
Yeah, work, friendships, relationships. Let's talk about that. Let's pull that apart a
Yeah.
bit. So I know some people will say, well, I'm not dating until I lose weight. So I'm not allowing myself to be loved and be in companionship because I'm not worthy of that until I lose weight, right? Until I am, I was speaking with a client yesterday and it was like, well, I don't feel okay having sex unless I'm feeling really thin and really empowered, right? And feeling okay. So there's then all this external things that have had to have happened in order for her to receive pleasure. And then how that shows up, I think, in relationships, the amount of times that I have missed out on deep connections with people. I'm sitting there talking to them, and all I'm thinking about is the salad, the dessert in front of me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I want to eat that. Oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that they haven't taken a bite yet. Oh my, like the obsession. Or, oh, wow, she looks so much better than I do. And then now I start to contract in my own system. Now I'm not here. I'm not in my heart. I'm not present with this person right in front of me because I am in comparison. I'm in that contrast. And then with our work. So with social media, a lot of people have to show up. They have to show up on camera. They have to show their face. They don't want to do that. And so there's that not being seen aspect, or even just the confidence that we need to have to show up. And I've never worked in corporate. That's never been my thing, other than going and doing like Reiki at an advertising company. But in that culture where it is wanting to feel confident, and I don't feel confident in my body, so I must not be worthy to raise my hand and speak up. So it shows up everywhere, Jen.
Yeah, it's also, as you're saying that, and I suppose maybe potential trigger warning, it's also reminding me, so often with eating disorders or weight gain, we also see it as this protection, right? So we see it a lot with people who have a history of sexual trauma.
Yes.
Right? That it becomes this protective layer. And so to your point, what I'm hearing is that's all connected to this too, in dealing with the underlying pieces of worthiness and what our body means to us and in the world.
Yeah, shall we talk about that a little bit more? Sexual
Sure.
violation. So I feel like for a lot of women, that is something that shows up in our lives. Even if you haven't had, what I say, like the big T trauma, I think there's an experience of feeling like our body is being looked at, and we are being looked at as a body and not as the whole being that we are. And a lot of women, myself included, have looked at these moments in time and it's like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad because I didn't have like something awful happen to me. However, it matters. It matters to slow down and be like, that moment was uncomfortable for me. And then for people who have had, some sort of sexual violation or trauma that they've worked on, I see it over and over again in my practice, how that shows up in their relationship to their body and their relationship to food. There's a control. The only thing that they can control or they want to control is their own body. And then there's this interesting experience of shame, pain, and pleasure. Because in those moments, sometimes there was pleasure, but there was also pain. And that shows up in food because food can be such a pain-pleasure experience. And so sometimes they are creating the same pattern. And it is very much tied to this past sexual trauma. And a lot of them, by the time they come to me, they've already worked through a lot of that. They've already maybe had therapy. However, the connection between that story and the food and unwinding it from the nervous system, unwinding it from the body, and unwinding it from the relationship to food, it is sometimes what I've seen in my practice where it completely releases because it's still hanging out there. And it's a very empowering thing to see where it shows up and be like, oh, I actually have the ability to change this. And I'm empowered in this moment to change it and become sovereign within my own pleasure and become sovereign in this moment with food.
Yeah. And one of the things you said last time we spoke that's really, it stuck with me then and it's coming up in my mind again now, is that our body image is like the lens through which we see and experience the world. And so I'd love to have you say more on that. But, in talking about sort of this history, when we realize that there's this connection and the shift that's possible when we reclaim that, it's so powerful.
It really is so powerful. And so if we take this idea of body image as a lens we see our life through, it seems like, what are we talking about here? But really what we're talking about is not even just body image, but body awareness, body connection, respect for our bodies and connection. So I wrote my book, Befriend Yourself, as a way to share with people the idea of friendship and the idea that friendship is a way that we often know how to be friends with other people, but we don't know how to become a friend to ourselves. We don't even know what that means. So if we take these attributes of friendship, listening to our friends, showing up for our friends, being there for them, seeing their truth, that's what we can do for ourselves. We can do that same experience with our body and with our food. So to circle back around to what you were talking about as far as self-talk, our best friend would never speak to us like so mean and putting us down. If that's who your best friend is, you want to rethink that, right? So in order for us to cultivate respect for ourselves, we need to speak kinder to ourselves. We need to show up the way that a best friend would. And so that kind of takes that concept of self-love, which can be so big, like what does that actually mean? And puts it into these bite-sized moments of, I'm going to be a good friend to myself right now. I'm going to acknowledge that I'm hungry, even though it says that I'm not supposed to eat for another hour because some external person told me that I'm not supposed to eat until this certain time. And it takes back that sovereignty of like, no, I'm going to eat because my body's hungry. And that's what I'm listening to.
Yeah, I'm laughing as you say that because it's so common. It's like so often I hear people going, well, I'm not supposed to be hungry yet or something, or I can't eat for another whatever. So I want to double click on this and dig deeper into these bite-sized things, really approachable things that we can do. And I love the reframing into befriending. I think it's so much easier to sort of wrap our heads around than this idea of like self-love. Let's highlight our partner for this episode and then we'll come back for more. Friends, if you're a fan of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast and looking for how you can support us, we've got you covered with our awesome merchandise. So maybe this is the perfect reminder of your commitment to your health and a tool to help you keep going. From new workout tanks and a gym bag to a bento box for lunch and magnets for your fridge that say protein and fiber, there are newer items plus still the fan favorite items so you can choose if you're hashtag team salad or hashtag team fries. So you owe it to yourself and the people on your gift list this year to check out everything in our merch store. Plus, your purchase supports this show and all that we do for you. So just head over to our website, asaladwithasideoffries.com, browse the full collection, or simply text the word fries, F-R-I-E-S, to 844-947-4846, and we'll send you the link right to your phone. Check out all the Salad with a Side of Fries merch. Your purchase supports everything we do for the show, supports the podcast, shows your podcast pride, and maybe it sparks a conversation for you to pay it forward and inspire someone else to change their health too. So again, just text the word fries, F-R-I-E-S, to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Also, since you already listened to Salad with a Side of Fries, check out SheMD. The SheMD podcast is on a mission to change the world of women's health by educating one woman at a time with the knowledge and expertise to be their own health advocate. Sound familiar? From fertility and PCOS to mental health and menopause, SheMD tackles many of today's major health concerns and questions, all from the lens of women. I love the episodes featuring Dr. A's expertise around endometriosis and PCOS. And just like Salad with a Side of Fries, SheMD believes in empowerment through knowledge. SheMD, though, brings you the Western medicine angle, except it's like if your doctor actually explained everything to you. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Check out SheMD wherever you get your podcasts today. Okay, Marla, back to you. Going with this idea of befriending, what are some of those really tangible things that we could start to do immediately?
Yes. So let's talk more about the listening, because I think this is such a moment that shows up. I'm going to go deeper into this. So if a friend comes to your house and they say, hey, can I have a drink of water? Or, hey, I'm a little hungry. Like, or they have to use the restroom. You're like, it's over there. Here's some water. Here's some food. So for ourselves, we don't actually listen. We don't listen and tune into our own needs. We slap on some other ideas of how we're supposed to be. And a lot of people say to me, I don't even know what that means to listen to my body. Like, I don't have any, like, how do you do that? And I think it's a muscle. I think it's something that we're not taught. I think we go up into our head and we ask our head, and then we sift through these belief systems that we were told that were given to us from family or some Instagram post or whatever. And what we need to do is slow down. Like a friend slows down, a friend is with us. A friend is a good friend, let's say, is someone who attunes to us, who knows who we are, and who settles in and takes a moment. And that's what we need to do with ourselves. Am I hungry? Am I just having an emotional moment and I'm just wanting to shove something in my mouth? Am I thirsty? No, I'm hungry. All right. Well, you're not supposed to eat. Well, I want to listen. I want to honor myself. A good friend honors self. So then you go and eat the whatever it is. And then you trust, right? You trust that your body has aligned wisdom. Now that takes a while. And I'm not saying that that's easy, because it took me a long time to begin to trust my body, because I wasn't a good friend, because I never listened to my body. I didn't trust that my body would give me the right wisdom. But over time of showing up and asking and figuring it out, I learned through that to become my own best friend. So let's talk about these even more. So your best friend comes to you and she's just done something where she's feeling so much shame. She's just feeling awful, or he's feeling awful. So what do? Oh, that's really, wow, that doesn't not feel good, huh? Oh, and you just are there and you listen and you allow them to have that moment. And then you comfort them. And then you let them cry it out, and then you give them some good suggestions after you've calmed them down. So what happens in relationship to our bodies and our food? Maybe we binge, maybe we show up to a party and you feel really uncomfortable in your body in comparison to someone else there. So what do? The shame shows up and you're like, you're disgusting. I can't even believe you ate that. No, that is not okay. And you look ridiculous. And now it's not a good friend. It's actually the enemy that shows up. And so in those moments where we have this behavior or this thought process, that's where the best friend needs to show up. Because if we stay in the shame, if we let the shame fester, the shame then wants to fix it. And we're not in a place to fix anything. We have to get ourselves back to where we feel okay. The only thing that we need to do is to be a friend to ourselves and get to ourselves back to the place where, okay, I'm okay. I'm not, this behavior is not my worth. This behavior, this thing that I did, my body, I am okay. And then from there, we can assess the situation. We can make a new plan. We can look and see what we want to do to take care of ourselves more. And I see that as something that brings people back into the cycle of negative body image, or back into the cycle of binge eating, emotional eating, whatever, chronic dieting, whatever it is. That specific pattern with shame, that's where the friend needs to show up.
How do we remind ourselves in that moment that we need the friend and not the shame?
Ooh, I think it is one of those experiences, Jen, where you've done it so many times that you're like, I just can't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And this is where I believe that healing is cyclical. It's not linear.
Yeah.
And so there are these moments where it doesn't work. It literally, the shame doesn't work. And when we get to that point where like, this doesn't work, I need to try something different. Because if the end result is I want to feel good in my body, and I want to have a good and healthy relationship with my food, then I'm going to do everything in my power I can to actually fix fix this, heal this, be with this. And so I'm gonna check this self-compassion thing out. Seems like it's not, I mean, it's not just a good idea. It actually works. It works. Like that is what has healed my relationship with food and body, is not the shame, not the beating myself up, not the controlling, not any of that. And so I think it sometimes can be a moment of desperation, but then I'm hoping by this conversation and us talking about it and pulling it apart and really looking at these moments, that for the listener, if you're hearing this right now, that in that moment where something shows up, and maybe it's not even around your food and your body, maybe it's about something completely different, that you just have this seed of wisdom that says, let's be kind to myself here. And so the tricky part with that is what people will say is, if I'm kind with myself and if I'm okay with this behavior, then I'm going to continue to do it. That's usually the objection.
Exactly. That was going to be my next question, right? Is because, we all experience this. We have the thought, and then there's also another voice in our head that is the yeah, but. So talk us through that piece.
Yes. So what I did was I did not accept my body. If I accepted my body, that meant that I was going to gain weight. And if I gained weight, that meant that I wasn't going to be accepted. So the way that I kept myself in control was, even if I got my body to what I thought was the way that I wanted to be, now there was the fear of how do I keep it there. So I was never free. But I chose that because there was this fear. If I accept my body, I will not eat well. I will not exercise. And like I said, I will gain all the weight. So this is the thing. There's a road that people go down. And the road is that dieting mentality, that control. And then there's the other side where it's like the screw it's, the F it's. And then there's that middle road. That's a road that most people don't even know that exists, or they are not quite sure how to navigate it. Okay, so you're saying that this behavior is okay? I didn't know that. If I'm over here, it's not okay. But if I'm over here, then it is okay. But there's this other experience, and this other experience is, okay, here I am. I'm going to accept myself. I'm going to be okay that I just did this behavior, and I'm going to show myself love and compassion. Whoa, this feels really weird. How do I handle this? And that's when we drop in, and then we ask the next question. And now what can I do for myself? Like a best friend, that's what they do. They allow us, they accept us for who they are. And then they're like, okay, I accept you. I love you. And how about you don't do that again? Or how about you get some support there? Or how about you check this thing out the next time? It's not about stopping there. It's about taking the kindness and the compassion and then taking that and maybe taking an action step later that is different. And that is where it's that next level.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you, because there's also a piece in these dynamics where the comparison, and I'm sort of going back a little, but as we're healing and then we end up around other people, because as we do in life, hopefully we're not, living alone in our homes. How can we start to make some progress, or what are the things that we can say to ourselves when that comparison shows up?
I think it is such a waste of time. It's such a life sucker. And comparing ourselves is, I think, so I was doing this talk at this sorority, and this woman, I was talking about comparing herself, and she's like, oh my, I didn't even know there was another way. That's how I do my life. I'm always looking outside and seeing if I'm okay. She's like, I did not even know there was another way of doing it. And that was such a wake-up call for me to hear her say that. And also what I realized, the amount of time that I can just remember walking in New York City, and like I would try to walk beside someone in a window to see because I was like, she's thin. Am I as thin as she? And then I would try to compare myself. Am I bigger than them? Like I had no concept of what I looked like. And the waste of time that was. And so I think really what we need to look at is, I'm comparing myself right now. And how does that feel? Does it feel good? Okay, so then I need to maybe stop doing that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm doing it right now. I'm not. I'm going to bring myself back into the moment and I'm going to take care of myself. Oh, what am I feeling? I am feeling really uncomfortable. So that's the moment of being your own best friend. Like those moments where we say something to our friend and then they're like, are you okay? Are you, what's going on here? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we start comparing ourselves and then we say, oh, I'm comparing myself. Oh, am I okay? Oh, I'm a little anxious about that, whatever that thing is. So it can be a sign that there's something going on where I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling anxious. So this is what I have done that really helped me so much is instead of looking around the world and comparing myself to this ideal body standard, because it's like we had this idea of what the ideal body is. So the way that I would look through life, and it was a lot of judgment. I had a lot of judgment on other people. I had a lot of judgment on myself. And so I began to expand my idea of what a beautiful body was. And I began to look around me and see beauty in everybody, whether it was, big and voluptuous or it was thin, whether it was petite, whether it was an older person or a younger person, whether they were fit, whether they were not, right? Like all these different things. I just began to look and say, oh my gosh, there's so much beauty, so much beauty. And that changed my perception of myself. Because then when I looked in the mirror, I was able to see my imperfections and still love myself and still be like, I'm okay. Now, sometimes people will say, but I do that. I look outside of myself and I see beauty in everyone else, but not me. And I would challenge that a little bit. I would challenge that because I think there's still a judgment in that. There's still that person has this and I don't. And so when we judge ourselves against someone else, we're still somehow making them wrong for having that because it makes us feel bad, right? I feel bad. You have that. If you didn't have that, I would feel better. And so that is the moment to be like, wow, so much love for this person. Wow, so much love for this person. And I think these kind of conversations, Jen, that you have here on your podcast, which is so important for people, is to realize that we're all in this together. And that woman over there, that man over there that you think has it all going on, likely doesn't. We all have our insecurities. We all have these places where we feel afraid or feel anxious or don't feel seen or want to be seen. We're all having these human experiences, whether they show up in our food or they show up in some other quirky way. And that comparison just allows us, when we stop doing it, allows us to have a lot more compassion for others and then which turns into more compassion for ourselves.
And now what can I do for myself? And now what can I do for me, right? Even if we ask it instead of what we would say to a friend, and now what can I do for you? Say, what can I do for me? I love that question. And maybe I'm jumping the gun as we, start to make progress in this. I'd love to hear, going back to the things that we saw and that we talked about in terms of pleasure and our relationships and friendships and work and all these things. What do those look like when we are, and I hesitate to use the word healed because as we said, it's not a flip a switch and we're done, right? There's certainly a process to it. But what do those things look like when we're making progress?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It feels like these little moments that feel like a miracle. It's like when my husband grabs my belly, and I don't like cringe and I actually have more pleasure in that moment. It's these moments with my son where I take him out for ice cream and I actually get the ice cream and I don't think that I have to exercise later, right? It's like these moments of showing up for self. And everyone is going to have those moments that is going to be different. There's going to be that sign that, oh, I wasn't able to do this before. And now it's showing up with such grace and ease. And that is what we're really going for. We're going for showing up. For me, I always had a lot of challenges. And I think this is a lot of other people too. It's like I can eat by myself, but being out in public and eating with other people was always a big challenge for me. And so being able to show up at a potluck and know that I'm not going to, if I do overeat, that I'm not going to shame myself and now I have to, have the repercussions for days later, or that I just trust that I'm going to be able to eat and that I'm still going to have connection with people. Like for me, that was a huge marker of like, okay, I can trust my body and I can be around other people and I am safe. Because the thing is that these moments of being with our body and our food, they're what protect us in the world. They're our way of protecting ourselves and helping us feel safe. Sometimes that's disassociating, not wanting to be present in the moment because I feel uncomfortable. So let me obsess about this food or let me feel uncomfortable in my body rather than actually taking in, oh, I don't actually like that person. And I have been pretending like I do all this time, right? And so these moments where we don't allow the food or the body to be the excuse and where we allow ourselves to show up and actually, I know how to take care of myself and I know how to create boundaries and I don't need the food and I don't need to be mean to myself in order to create that boundary. That's amazing.
Yeah, and what a weight lifted, right? Like it's a different way of operating through life.
Yeah, I mean, so many times I've heard my clients say, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to think about now. Now that I'm not thinking about my body and food, and I can remember that, it almost feels like the Twilight Zone. Like, where am I? What am I going to think about? I'm like, don't worry, your mind will take care of that. It will find something to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's occurring to me as you say this and this whole idea of like, we're having this conversation with someone else, or we say their body is okay for them, but their body would not be okay for me. That disconnect, and then asking the next question of why is it okay for them and not for you? What's the other thing that they have that makes it okay that I don't have that makes it not okay?
Wonderful question. Everyone write that down. That's great. Right. Yeah. And then that goes us into our belief systems, right? Like, I have this belief. Oh, where did that belief come from? Oh, that came from this place. I don't even believe that belief. Okay, let's delete that. Let's challenge that. Let's see if that belief is even serving. It's not making me feel good. Can I change that belief? Sometimes it's a little bit trickier. Sometimes there's a lot more to unpack in that. And sometimes it is just even being aware that it's there so that when the comparison comes up again, it's like, oh, here I'm comparing myself because of this belief that's been ingrained in me.
All right. Wrapping this up, a final thought, something we missed. I know this is a massive topic and we've just sort of, scratched the surface, but anything we'd be remiss if we didn't mention?
We talked about compassion. We talked about using compassion as something that is not just a good idea, but it's something that actually works. So we talked about that shame piece. We talked about being with the negative body and negative self-talk and realizing how that is not serving us. We talked about this concept of taking self-love down to these bite-sized pieces of becoming our own best friend. And then we also talked about at the beginning of how, let's look a little deeper. Where is this pattern showing up in your life that is affecting you? And so what I would say to that is to kind of circle back to that point is, if there is something in your life around your body and your food, and if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming there probably is to begin to look at how that is impacting your life and begin to look at, if that changed, what positive impacts would that bring? What would actually change? How would that experience kind of blossom some things in my life? And then see where is their support? Where can I lean into this more?
Love it. Absolutely. And play with it. Experiment. See what happens.
Play with it. Yes.
All right. It's time for our rapid fire off-topic questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? Because, naughty. Balance. It's not really naughty,
right.
But
I have been swimming a lot, and I have been going to the pool, which here in Maui, They have a saltwater pool and it has a beautiful view. And I just feel like jumping into that water is like a complete reset for me. So that is something that I did. What I did that was naughty, I had some vodka.
Love it. I'm with you. If you weren't a body image expert, Reiki healer, speaker, and writer, what would you do?
Oh, what just popped into my head is I'd be something around travel. Ooh, that's exciting. Yeah, I would like plan travel and I would travel everywhere. Ooh, that's fun.
Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
I loved Chronicles of Narnia. My son and I did that whole series, and I still have so many images in my head. I love that book, that whole series. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Anxiety.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Flying.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. Okay, let me just feel into that. When people say sorry all the time. I do not like when people say sorry, like continually in their conversation. I just feel it's so disempowering.
I get it. All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Where positive body image isn't just like a nice trendy thing to talk about, but that it begins to infiltrate, where it begins to change and shift how diet culture is lived, how it just crumbles it. Let's just say diet culture is coming down.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, find your book, everything.
Yes, you can go to loveyourbodyloveyourself.com. And of course, you can find my book, Befriend Yourself, on Amazon. I do have my free Breaking the Cycle of Emotional Eating, which is a free course. It's a free, but I give a lot of good stuff there. So I would invite you to check that out. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, Love Your Body, Love Yourself Always. And feel free to reach out. Sometimes we just need to ask a certain little question about something that's going on. So I'm pretty approachable in that way.
Awesome. And we'll put links to everything in the episode notes, so it's super easy for everybody. Thank you again. Just truly appreciate, all the stories you share in your own story and, bringing this conversation to everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Absolutely. All right, friends. This Friday in our Nutrition Nugget bonus episode, we're talking about camel milk. Have you seen this? So there was an article a friend sent to me. The headline read, "Is camel milk the next big dairy alternative?" So, as I do, I put it on my list, and we're going to explore the pros and cons of camel milk on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode. So be sure, wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday morning at 3 a.m. Eastern. Marla Mervis-Hartmann, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here and so glad to get to share this message with your listeners. You're doing such great work. Such great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and of course, your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the best healthy turkey chili. So until next week, remember, our body image shows up in virtually every aspect of our lives, and you are worthy of loving your body. You are worthy of loving yourself. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.